I was driving alone through the countryside, my car rumbling along roads that had started to feel endless. My GPS had died a few miles back, and the sun was already low, staining the horizon in orange and violet streaks. I had no idea where I was, but then a faded sign appeared. Welcome to Darrington. The town didn't look like much. Faded paint on the buildings, cracked sidewalks, a main street that seemed to stretch for only a block, but somehow felt endless. Even from the first moment I stepped out of my car, I felt like I was being watched. The streets were silent, unnaturally quiet, and the air itself felt heavy, as if it were holding a secret. I parked near the only cafe that seemed open and stepped inside, hoping a cup of coffee would calm my nerves. The place looked normal, even cozy, but the people inside weren't. They stared at me, not a polite glance, not a casual curiosity, but a long, unblinking, intense stare, one that made me feel like I was already part of some story I didn't understand. I shook it off, telling myself I must look like an outsider, but there was something in their eyes, something patient, waiting, as if they had been expecting me. The cafe owner was thin, pale, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Welcome to Darrington. You won't find a better place to stay," he said, in a voice that was too calm, too controlled. I smiled and nodded, but I couldn't shake the feeling that saying no would somehow be dangerous. He directed me to the town's only inn, a dusty building with peeling wallpaper and a wooden sign that creaked mournfully in the evening wind. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of mildew, dust, and stale coffee. The innkeeper, a woman with bright eyes and a perfectly steady smile, led me to my room. The bed was uncomfortable, the sheets thin and rough, but it wasn't the physical discomfort that kept me awake that night. It was the silence outside. No cars, no bogs, no voices, only a faint, steady hum that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Then the footsteps began, slow, dragging, deliberate. I told myself it was the building settling. I told myself it was my imagination, but the footsteps stopped just outside my door, and for the first time I felt it, an awareness that I wasn't alone. Not a ghost, not a monster, but something profoundly human and profoundly wrong. The next morning I tried to leave, I really did, but as I drove toward the town's edge, the roads bent strangely. No matter which direction I turned, I ended up back at the main street. I checked the map. Everything should have made sense. The landmarks were familiar, the streets were the same, and yet I couldn't escape. People appeared at the edges of my vision, standing silently, smiling politely, always just far enough away to make me uncomfortable. When I stopped to ask for directions, they all gave the same answer: "You'll find your way soon." It sounded like a warning and a promise at the same time. Days passed, or maybe hours. I could no longer tell. Time felt distorted. My phone refused to work. Even my watch seemed to tick slower or faster, depending on when I looked at it. I began to notice patterns in the town. The cafe served the same breakfast at the same time, the same barista asking the same questions about me. Everyone in the town asked questions about my life, my past, my choices. I answered, at first politely, then compulsively, as if there were some invisible rule compelling me to share. I noticed that the people here never spoke about themselves. They asked about me, about my experiences, my fears, my regrets, but they never revealed anything personal. Even when I tried to ask them about the town, about their lives, they would smile and deflect with vague, oddly rehearsed answers. And yet I slowly realized that the things I had never told anyone, secrets I had buried deep, were somehow already known to them. Small details, insignificant details, things I hadn't shared with anyone, seemed to emerge naturally in conversation. At night, I would walk to the edge of the town, hoping that maybe on foot I could leave, but even the streets twisted in impossible ways. Houses appeared where they hadn't been before. Fences blocked paths that were open only yesterday. Trees crowded the roads, and the landscape itself seemed to resist me. Shapes of people appeared in the shadows between the trees. They didn't move in the conventional sense, but I felt them watching, calculating, waiting. I tried to confront one of them directly. I asked why I couldn't leave, why the town seemed designed to trap me. A man with a neutral face and a calm voice smiled and said, "You came here for a reason, and now you belong." That was the moment I realized the town didn't need monsters to terrify you. It was the people, their routines, their rituals, their perfect, polite obsession with outsiders. They created a web that entrapped you without a single scream. Over time, I began to notice other things. Every day, the same person would walk past my window. The same man would sit outside the cafe at the same table, every day, doing the same things. Children played in the street, but their laughter was too measured, too deliberate. Conversations repeated almost verbatim from one day to the next. Small inconsistencies in the way time passed, in the layout of the streets, in the way people spoke, began to feel deliberate, as if the town itself were alive, orchestrating everything around me. I started to see the patterns everywhere, the rhythm of people moving, the order in which the mailman walked his route, the way neighbors greeted each other. Repetition upon repetition, small gestures and rituals that made everything feel inevitable, inescapable. I tried to resist. I tried to break routines, to ignore them, to take a new path, but somehow the town adapted. My attempts were subtly erased. New fences, closed roads, new faces in the crowd, always smiling, always watching. And the whispers, always the whispers at night. Not voices, not words, just a soft hum, sometimes almost rhythmic, like the faint echo of my own heartbeat. It seeped through the walls, through the floorboards, through the very air, and sometimes I could swear it was repeating what I had said during the day in conversations with the locals. It was impossible to ignore. I watched people arrive in Darrington, strangers, tourists, people lost like I had been. They would wander into the town politely, sometimes curious, sometimes cautious, and always, eventually, they would end up following the routines, sitting at the cafe, answering questions, learning the rhythms. I realized slowly that the town didn't have to trap you. You trapped yourself, guided gently by the inhabitants, until your will bent, until your habits aligned, until leaving became impossible. Finally, I understood. The town was alive in a sense I couldn't define. Not supernatural, not monstrous, not evil in the conventional sense, but conscious, aware, designed. Its people maintained it, enforced it, and when someone new arrived, they would guide them into the patterns, into the routines, until the town absorbed them fully. And I had been absorbed. I had been guided until I had no real choice, until I had joined them completely. Now I wake each morning to the same breakfast, the same questions, the same smiles. I walk past the same faces, offer the same polite directions to newcomers, and I watch, because some things are far worse than monsters. Some things are perfectly human, perfectly ordinary, and they can trap you without malice, without violence, without a scream, and that is far scarier than I could have imagined. I have learned the town's rhythm. I follow it perfectly. I watch the new arrivals, guiding them gently, watching them as they slowly adjust to the patterns, and I wait patiently, because some things are far worse than death or monsters. Some things are subtle, patient, and human. Darrington doesn't need locks or bars. It doesn't need threats or chains. All it needs is people like me.
And now you understand why. Because once you arrive, you never leave.